What's up, everyone? It's Lan here with another episode of the Cheeseheadz Weekly Podcast. We're here on Monday. Super Bowl is over. It is officially the offseason in the NFL. But in this episode, we're mainly going to react to the Super Bowl. I have a few takes that may or may not be considered hot takes, and we'll kind of go from there. Before we get started, if you want to support the show, and if you're listening, I sure hope you want to support the show, you can check out the Q&As and the polls on Spotify. We put those out every week, and it's great to see some participation in those. There is a link in the description of every single episode, every platform, even on YouTube, and you can send in a voice message, a question about the Packers or the NFL in general, or a topic that you want me to discuss, whatever it is. And also, the show is available pretty much everywhere except for Amazon Music. It's available on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe there and follow the show wherever you are listening. You can rate the show on Spotify and rate and review on Apple Podcasts. New episodes do come out every Tuesday, normally Tuesday evening. If I'm really late, it'll be Wednesday sometime. You can hit the bell icon on Spotify or YouTube and maybe a few other places to be notified when a new episode comes out. Also, be sure to tell your friends about the show. A great way to get the word out and get a bigger audience here. Grow the show a little bit. You can check out our website as well, graycove.net/cheeseheads, for more ways to connect with the show. Follow us on social media at Cheeseheadz_weekly, except for on X, it is at Cheeseheadz_W. In the description of every episode, there are ways to connect with the show. And also, I would appreciate, as we get into the off season here, it tends to be a little bit more dry, and you can send me your topic ideas, DM me on Instagram or X. You can comment on a YouTube video, tell me in the Q&As. You can email me. There's a link in the description of every episode for that. Whichever works best for you, and that would be great to hear from y'all and get some good ideas for topics. It is episode 55. Like I said, Super Bowl's over. Chiefs beat the 49ers for the second straight year, they won the Super Bowl for the second straight year. They didn't beat the Niners both times. 25-22 in overtime. Crazy victory. I was kind of in disbelief after it all, and we'll break it all down here a little bit. Not maybe too much detail. I did not watch the first half. I watched the first half highlights. Just got done doing that, and to me, watching the second half, I thought the 49ers should have got the win. They felt like it was a close game. Felt like the 49ers were in control overall, but it just didn't happen, and just a rough loss for the 49ers. Very disappointing for them, I'm sure. Not something. I was a little bit disappointed as well. I felt like I got into it a little bit too much for it being a 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl and for me not being very excited about it to begin with, but kind of how it went. It was a thriller. It was fun to watch, and immediately after the Super Bowl, I'll admit my first thought was, man, the NFL is rigged. I think that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. Taylor Swift jumping up and down with all our other celebrity friends. It was a pretty crazy game, but we had some fun stuff happen. Like I said, Super Bowl, I don't care a whole lot if the Packers aren't in it, and there definitely some fun storylines, some things to talk about, and we'll get right into that here in a minute. So, there's blame going around. There always is. But I'll talk about a few things. Before we get too far into the Super Bowl, I want to talk, we had the NFL honors on Thursday night. Didn't get a chance to talk about that yet. So I will talk about that a little bit. I have a little bit of a take on kind of the MVP award. So if we look at all these, I'll read off everyone for you. The MVP of the season is quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. Didn't surprise anyone. Again, he folded in the playoffs. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. I mean, we already talked about his playoff performance. We'll talk about the MVP award a little bit later. Offensive Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. Very well deserving. Led the NFL in scrimmage yards per game, 126.4. Scrimmage touchdowns, 21. Rushing touchdowns, 1,459. Had 114 first downs and 44 10-plus yard runs while playing in 16 games. And those gave McCaffrey a Pro Bowl and first-team All-Pro honors. And he also added his name to the record books. He boosted his total career games with a rushing and a receiving score in the same game to 15. That's tied with Marshall Faulk, with the most in league history. And he became the third player in NFL history to post more than 2,000 scrimmage yards in a season for two different franchises. Yeah, McCaffrey unquestionably is the best running back in the NFL, one of the best running backs in history now, and he just continues to be an absolute force out there for the 49ers, and he's really what got them to where they are. To where they were, got them to the Super Bowl this year. Defensive Player of the Year is Myles Garrett, defensive end for the Cleveland Browns. He's contended for this award year after year, was able to earn the award, very well deserving. Myles Garrett has been great for that Browns defense. He actually only finished 7th in the league with 14 sacks, but he had the best regular season defense. Browns were one of the best defenses in the league, and Garrett was a big part of that. And he did finish second in pass rush win rate at 30.5%, even though he faced the third highest double team rate at 28.8%, which is pretty makes a big difference. And the pressure on the quarterback is what is the big deal anyway. The sacks. You want to finish the play and get the sacks, but if you can rattle the quarterback with consistent pressure, that's going to help a lot. And, yeah, Browns were the best NFL defense in the regular season. Offensive Rookie of the Year is quarterback for the Houston Texans. This was an easy one. C.J. Stroud. Insane rookie season. Look for him and Jordan Love to be kind of the future at quarterback in the league. These two guys, pretty awesome, and set a number of rookie records for the Texans. Defensive Rookie of the Year, guess what? It's Houston Texans defensive end Will Anderson Jr., and he immediately made an impact there for the Texans. Third in pass rush win rate, right behind Myles Garrett, 25.8%. He was sixth in run stop win rate, 36%. Pretty impressive for a rookie to be that well-rounded, to be able to stop the run at a high level and also rush the passer at a high level. And, man, Houston Texans stacked with young talent, and they could be good for a while. Coach of the Year for the second time is Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns. Matt LaFleur did get a few votes, should have been the Coach of the Year. I will admit, Kevin Stefanski is one of the best coaches in the league from what we've seen. And the fact that they were able to get in the playoffs this year is pretty incredible. The Browns have made the postseason just 3 times since returning to the NFL in 1999. 2 of those came with Stefanski as head coach, and in both, he was named Coach of the Year. They finished 11-6. And they lost to Sean Watson, their starting quarterback. They also lost Nick Chubb early in the season, torn ACL and other damage, messed up knee big time. And he still got him there with a mixture of Joe Flacco, P.J. Walker, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Very impressive for Kevin Stefanski, and He is an absolute stud here as a coach for the Browns. Comeback Player of the Year, speaking of which, Joe Flacco, quarterback for the Browns. Some people would argue it should be Damar Hamlin, as he was able to come back and play a few snaps, a very small amount, and most of them probably on special teams for the Bills. But Joe Flacco was unsigned during the offseason, signed halfway through the season to their practice squad, and became starter, and never looked back. Took him to the playoffs. Didn't do great in the playoffs, but pretty impressive for Flacco to come in and play the way he did. And he was very grateful just to be able to be part of a team like that and be able to lead that team to the playoffs, even though they lost right away to the Houston Texans. All right, so let's talk about the MVP award. I talked about how stupid the NFL is, how different things in the NFL are just kind of going downhill. Not very necessary. I talked about the Pro Bowl specifically, and I think the MVP award is a lot like the Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl recognition is not much of recognition. Guess who some of the quarterbacks were that were in the Super Bowl? We had Geno Smith, very average year at quarterback. Gardner Minshew, the Colts backup, replaced Anthony Richardson. And, I mean, the Colts did pretty well under him, or with him at quarterback. Didn't make the playoffs. He was, okay. No one really talked about him. Whatever. There are other names that I'm not thinking of right now, but Jordan Love wasn't in the Pro Bowl, for one, and with those guys over top of him, it's so messed up. And the Pro Bowl, eventually, there's a lot of players that don't even play in it, so you go down the alternates and you get guys. That's how you get guys like Geno Smith, and Baker Mayfield was another one that end up in the Pro Bowl. And it's not much of recognition anymore. Before, Pro Bowls were actually meant something. Now you just go by All Pro and NFL honors, pretty much. Except the MVP award is becoming a lot like the Pro Bowl because it's almost all quarterbacks, even if the quarterback isn't always that great. Lamar Jackson's season was a little bit up and down. It was not a spectacular season. He did pretty good for the Ravens. Got the Ravens to the number 1 seed in the AFC. Didn't do good in the playoffs. Lamar just doesn't seem to me to be a great quarterback yet, one of the NFL's absolute elite quarterbacks. And we talked about it last week when we were talking about our top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Troy's point was that CMC, Christian McCaffrey, should be the MVP. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it should be, propelling your team, the impact you have on your team. And when you're a running back and you have as much impact as Christian McCaffrey does on a team, he had about as much impact as Lamar Jackson had on his team, probably. Lamar Jackson's a quarterback. He's supposed to do that. And when Christian McCaffrey, the running back, is going out there, just getting it done every single week, really just running, making this 49ers offense work, that's impressive. And he should have won MVP. Congrats on Offensive Player of the Year. But I think he should have won. Just switch the rules. Just put Lamar Jackson Offensive Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey MVP. We don't need this nonsense that it has to be a quarterback. It doesn't have to be a quarterback. It's about the biggest impact player, most valuable overall player on the season. I think Christian McCaffrey should be the NFL's MVP for 2023. Okay. The Super Bowl, I wasn't real impressed with it. The Taylor Swift stuff leading up to it, I won't get into too much of that. I was really into it. Really getting into it last night with some friends. But I think the whole Taylor Swift thing is, Troy said it pretty good last week on the show. And the NFL loves it, brings in more money, and it's not really great for the actual sport of football because now we have a bunch of random people random Swifties watching football just because they want to catch a glimpse of Taylor Swift on TV. On TV, okay? This is on a screen. Just go on the internet and look up pictures of Taylor Swift if you want to see her. But it's such a cool love story, whatever. And so you get people that know absolutely nothing about football, absolutely nothing about Travis Kelce, and Taylor Swift is like everyone's idol. It's a little bit absurd, to be honest. So that's why I couldn't root for the Chiefs, and it's not really great for the sport. We really need to, maybe Travis Kelce should just retire. Although after the Super Bowl, he was a little bit pumped, to be honest, doing some hollering around out there. You gotta fight for your right to party, all that stuff. Travis Kelce type stuff. Everyone knows Travis Kelce. So now we'll go to a Super Bowl parade, to watch some drunk guys give speeches. Travis Kelce will be up there, beer in hand, yelling at the top of his lungs. I don't need to see any of that, for sure. I'm sure people will be interested this year, though, if Taylor Swift is along or something like that. At any rate, Super Bowl parades, you heard me talk about them last year. They are a bunch of nonsense, just a bunch of beer-drinking idiots going down the street and saying a bunch of bad words and pretty much doing whatever they want in front of everyone. Not the greatest look. I forget what the point I was actually... I had something else I was going to say there. Oh, Travis Kelce is not retiring. At least he wasn't in the heat of the moment. He wants to go for the three-peat. And Patrick Mahomes says, quote, "It would be legendary to be able to win the Super Bowl 3 times in a row." All right, now let's get into the actual Super Bowl here. It was, felt like a lot of Niners in the first half. They got a few turnovers. If we look at the box score here, let me just check it out. All right. We had, I'm not sure, I feel like the 49ers won the turnover battle in this one. Mahomes was sacked 3 times. He threw a pick. If we look at the fumbles, Patrick Mahomes fumbled 2 times, recovered one of them. They lost 1 fumble, and that was the Isaiah Pacheco fumble in the red zone after Patrick Mahomes made an incredible throw down the field. Let me see how many yards. 52 yards to McCole Hardman. Put him right in the red zone, like 10-yard line-ish area. And they handed off to Pacheco. He got swarmed, guys all over, and kept staying on his feet. And so the 49ers took the ball away from him. And that was a little bit of a momentum change kind of early on, and it ended up being 10-3 at the half. I started watching at the half. It started off not so great for the Chiefs. They got the ball after the half and immediately fumbled the ball on a handoff attempt or something to Isaiah Pacheco. Lost a bunch of yards. And then we had the interception by Patrick Mahomes. Really bad one. Really bad-looking interception. Not one you normally see from Patrick Mahomes. So, 49ers won the turnover battle. Should have won the game because of that. Okay, they did lose 2 fumbles. One, I think, was on special teams because it bounced off the foot of special teamer, and so then Ray McLeod was scrambling for the ball. That didn't happen. Chiefs got that one. Apparently, Christian McCaffrey fumbled too. I must have forgot about that one. I literally just got done watching highlights, but, there's a lot of stuff. Kyle Juszczyk had a pretty fun play. Caught a pass and just hurdled a guy. Pretty hyped after that one. Just random something that I saw in the highlights that I thought was pretty cool. We had a Jennings touchdown pass. Jawan Jennings And Jawan Jennings, he steps up in big moments, when the other guys weren't able to find a whole lot of room. 4 for 42 and a touchdown and a passing touchdown and a trick play. It looked a little bit dangerous if you watch the play, but it worked out perfectly, and Christian McCaffrey just sprinted in. Speaking of Christian McCaffrey, he got 22 carries, but only had 80 yards, 3.6 a carry. His long was only 11. I'd say the Chiefs did a pretty good job holding him at bay, and at times the 49ers maybe abandoned the run too much. I've seen at least a few people giving Shanahan a lot of flack for that. If the run isn't working, it's really hard to stick to it, man. It just really is. And there were stretches in that game where they were not sticking to the run, but when it really mattered on their drive, in overtime, they were handing it to McCaffrey, grinding out the yards, doing it all the right way. Ultimately, only kicked a field goal, and Chiefs were able to drive down there, score a touchdown to Mecole Hardman. Pretty crazy. Started the season with the Jets as pretty much a nobody for them, just a random depth piece, and ended up, catching a 52-yard bomb and then scoring the game-winning touchdown in overtime in the Super Bowl. Pretty crazy. So, Brock Purdy, there's been some talk about him. I thought he played a pretty good game. It's hard to tell if is he a game manager. I'll tell you this much: he's a gamer. He played some gritty football, took off a few times, was scrambling around. Did pretty good under pressure. He was not putting the ball in harm's way, but he was able to get rid of the ball at times. And 49ers offensive line did not do a great job. That was pretty much their major weakness. Purdy only took 1 sack, which is great, Only 1 sack and only lost 4 yards on it. But was scrambling along, couldn't make a few around a lot, couldn't make a few throws just because he had pressure in his face immediately. And so at one point he had a touchdown. I think this might have been on their overtime drive. He could have thrown a touchdown pass, but instead just had to chuck it because Chris Jones was bearing down on him, stuff like that. The offensive line was not great, and that kind of was a problem, especially towards the end of the game when, guys like Chris Jones start to take over the game. Overall, I thought Brock Purdy, it was a valiant effort. I'll say that much, and you can look for them to be back. I think Brock Purdy is the guy for them. He's really cheap. Other teams aren't clamoring for him, and he's just perfect for that system, and he fits what they do. He's great for Shanahan. I think Shanahan really likes having him. And, I mean, he's never been known for his athleticism, but he was making guys miss out there. He has a really good feel in the pocket for when pressure's coming at him. That is a pretty major strength. If you can play under pressure like that, I thought he was cool, calm, collected pretty much the whole game. And that's what you want to see out of a quarterback, and some of those qualities and the leadership qualities off the field are what's really important. I think that is where Purdy has an edge over Mahomes. So we'll see what happens there. I'll just say this: Patrick Mahomes continues to go lower and lower on my list of favorite quarterbacks in the league. He's getting pretty close to the bottom at this point, as far as just off the field, just respect level for the quarterback. Okay. There has been some controversy about the overtime. So the overtime rules are actually different. I'll be honest, I didn't really know this either. And apparently the Chiefs knew all about this. 49ers did not really. According to Kyle Shanahan, he discussed with his staff, analytics, different stuff, what to do if they went into overtime with those overtime rules. According to a bunch of different 49ers players, they did not even know that the rules were different in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs. So they were assuming exactly the same. Some of them said they did not even know that the rules were different until they saw the rules up on the scoreboard, and then they're like, oh, they get a chance to possess the ball. Either way, Kyle Shanahan's making the decision here. He made the decision to take the ball first. That's normally what you do in overtime, but it is a little different when, even if you score a touchdown, Chiefs will get the ball. And I've heard from multiple analysts, Dan Orlovsky of ESPN, for one, saying that he probably should have kicked the ball because if you allow the Chiefs to get it first, yeah, they might score a touchdown, and that's worst case scenario, obviously, if they score a touchdown. But you get the ball back, and then you have nothing to lose. It's your last possession. You're treating it like an end game scenario, and it's 4-down territory. So you got 4 downs to go, where the Chiefs, since they're going first, they're only going to be using 3 downs, and then, if it gets to 4th down, you're punting, because you don't want a chance of, if you go on 4th down and don't make it, then that's all but the end of the game right there. 49ers if they score, that's the end. So that's why you would want the Chiefs to have it first. Instead, the Niners had it first. They only had 3 downs. They got down there in the red zone, 4th down. 4th and fairly short, but you're not going to go for it in that situation because that's way too risky. In the red zone at that point, I believe, Jake Moody made a great kick. He missed an extra point earlier in the game, which I'm sure he's going to get a bunch of hate for, because if he would have made that, then Harrison Butker couldn't have tied. It couldn't have gone to overtime. You have to really go way back, because NFL fans are always looking for that one play that lost the game. There's never one play, and all players and coaches will tell you that. It is never one play. You lose a game, never one play, okay? I thought 49ers played a pretty good game in this one, but there were always plays that could have been made that were not made. I talked about that touchdown pass potentially. If the offensive line would not have let the pressure in there, that's a touchdown pass. Just stuff like that. So it never comes down to one play. Kyle Shanahan will tell you that. Brock Purdy will tell you that. George Kittle will tell you that. Everyone will tell you that from the 49ers. It's not one play, and they will defend Jake Moody, and so will I. But Moody, able to bounce back from the missed extra point, or it was actually blocked. It was just a really low kick. It was on Moody. It was on Moody for sure. But he's able to drill the kick, and then Chiefs get the ball. Mahomes, 4-down territory, overtime, game on the line. You know it's going to happen. You got Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce made a big old play. Yeah. 49ers, I think what really influenced the decision for Shanahan was that his defense was just on the field. They were tired. Everyone was tired towards the end of that game. It's a long game, man, in the Super Bowl, especially whenever you have to listen to a, half an hour long, a halftime show, all the lead up to it. It's kind of exhausting. I don't know. Again, it's the NFL, the popularity, the money, the ratings. Doesn't have anything to do with players, what they want. So, yeah, the defense was tired. They had just been on the field. I think that was what really influenced the decision, but I think he should have tried to keep the defense on there. And, yeah, if the defense is tired, possibly even slightly more tired than they were when Mahomes led that drive, it's possible he goes down and leads another drive. I forgot to look, but I'm not sure they ever got into a 4th down on that last drive there for the Chiefs. I can't remember that they ever got the 4th down. There were some 3rd downs, but they rolled down the field pretty nicely, and then game-winning touchdown. So I don't have a lot to say. I think Kyle Shanahan coached a good game overall. I really liked a lot of the play calls on offense. The defense by Steve Wilks was not great. I saw a lot of Joe Barry in that last drive. They're trying to send all-out blitzes, and then they had all their cover guys behind the sticks way off, and it was just dink and dunk over the middle. and they went right down the field. And then you hit a big play, run after the catch with Travis Kelce. And so, not what you want to see. And actually, that wasn't on the overtime drive, I don't think, that big play to Kelce. Either way, it's the same scenario. It might have been the drive leading up to the game-tying field goal to force it into overtime. It was a big play in the game. I remember that much. And so that's just you can't play defense like that. And I think Kyle Shanahan took a timeout at one point to try to change the defense to what he wanted. But then at that point, he's coaching the defense and the offense. It's like it was too much. Possibly made the wrong decision going into overtime. I get the other way, kicking it. Then you have all 4 downs. Seems like a pretty good strategy. But again, I think Shanahan worked this out pretty well. And he made the decision that he thought was best for the team. And I respect him for that. And so it is what it is. Defense could have just made a stop. And then you have the game right there because they did score a field goal. So it was halfway successful. All right, that will do it for my talk about the Super Bowl here. This is getting longer than I thought it was going to be. I want to talk tight ends, Kelce versus Kittle. George Kittle is, and I'm starting to think is an egregiously underrated player. Now, he did not have a great Super Bowl, did not have an amazing playoffs. I think the Chiefs did a pretty good job of taking him away, and then he injured his shoulder later in the game and came back in. He's a tough guy, but just kind of was washed out of the game a lot of times. Let me just see what he had for stats here. He had 2 receptions for 4 yards. So, yeah, he didn't do a whole lot. But he would have had a pretty big first down at one point if it wasn't for a holding call. So, where Purdy was scrambling, made a nice throw, and George Kittle was able to come back for it and get the first down, but called back by holding. I'm just talking about overall tight ends. I think as of at least this year, get ready, stay in your seat, sit down if you're standing, something like that. George Kittle is better than Travis Kelce, at least this year. Maybe he just is better than Kelce. I get it. And why I say this year is because I think Travis Kelce is starting to decline a little bit. He's getting older, 34 years old. I totally get that. And I honestly really need to look up Kittle's age. Let me just check here real quick. Kittle is 30. So 4-year difference, that is a pretty big difference. And Travis Kelce just gets a ton of receptions, balls thrown his way. Like, he's a lot of wear and tear on his body for sure. So I totally get that. And I'm not saying all-time. Travis Kelce is an all-time great tight end, possibly arguably, in some people's minds, the best tight end ever. George Kittle isn't that, at least not yet. He probably never will be, just because he started, he became a really good tight end. I really need to research his backstory because it's pretty incredible how he even got to this point. He is overall the best tight end in the league, and because he can do everything. Tight end is not a wide receiver, okay? A tight end is a tight end, which means you're blocking, you're pass blocking, you're run blocking, you are catching passes. There's a lot of stuff that goes into being a tight end. You pretty much have to learn to play like an offensive lineman and like a receiver. You pretty much have to learn 2 positions, and that's why it's like the second hardest position to learn other than quarterback. And because of that, and it takes a while for tight ends to be able to develop, especially young ones, and get their feet under them and be able to play at a high level because there's just so much to learn. But George Kittle apparently has got it all learned because he, according to PFF, he's the number 1 graded tight end in the league this year. I guess this is this year. And at 87.7 grade. Travis Kelce is second with an 82.6 grade. Here's the big difference. Travis Kelce does have a better receiving grade, 87.8 to George Kittle's 85.2. run blocking is where the major difference is, and it's a major, major difference. George Kittle is by far best in the league, 81.1. Travis Kelce is a measly 46.9. Now, to be fair, Travis Kelce is the better pass blocker, according to PFF. That's a better grade in that department, 77.9 to Kittle's 70.6. But George Kittle, he's been known for his run blocking, widely considered the best blocking tight end in the league, and continues to show why. Like, great season, and he actually did better at receiving this year than Kelce did. He was the second best tight end in fantasy football, and he had 65 receptions for 1,020 yards and 6 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, this is the regular season. Travis Kelce, he did play one less game than Kittle did, and he had 93 receptions, but only 84 yards and 5 touchdowns, one less touchdown, a few less yards, and way more receptions. So George Kittle is also a more efficient tight end. Now, I found an article here by PFF. Let's compare some stats here. Career stats, let's just read off Travis Kelce's career stats among tight ends, including the postseason. Receiving grade for the career, he's number 1, 94.4 receiving grade. This is receiving. Receiving yards, 13,139. That's first among all tight ends in a career. And that's why I say overall career, Kelce is probably better than Kittle, even though it is more than receiving, and Kittle is a better blocker, even a better blocker than even prime Travis Kelce. Receiving touchdowns, tied for second with 94 receptions, second, 1,063. So Kelce, no doubt, he is all-time. He's probably better than George Kittle. But if you look at stats from 2017 to now, well, first, top career overall grades by tight ends in PFF history. Travis Kelce, number 1, 93.9. Rob Gronkowski, 93.9, tied with Kelce for number 1. And George Kittle, a close second at 93.2. So George Kittle, he's a top 3 tight end as far as overall grade in his career in PFF history. I'm not sure when PFF started, but Tony Gonzalez is on here, so back a little ways, I guess. All right, so here we go. Here is a head-to-head matchup. Since 2017, the receiving grade for PFF, Kittle is slightly less than Kelce, not actually that much. 94.3, the grade for Kelce. Kittle with a 93.3. Here's where it gets interesting. The yards per reception, Kittle has 13.7. Travis Kelce has 12.3. The yards per route run, Kittle is also better in this department, 2.26. Kelce only with 2.19. Yak per reception, Kittle is also known for his run after the catch. He's a very mean guy to tackle. You don't want to tackle this guy. Don't want to tackle Travis Kelce either, just to be fair. But Kittle, 7.3 yards after the catch per reception, and Kelce has only 5.3, so 2 yards difference. Pretty significant. So, I mean, this is pretty big stuff here for George Kittle. And this is all receiving stuff. This isn't even blocking. It's reasonable to think, according to this article, that Kittle would produce similar results to Kelce if he saw a similar volume as a receiver, because he looks like a more efficient tight end than Kelce, at least from what you can see here. Obviously, he doesn't receive as much volume. So if he received as much volume, would he be more efficient still? Perhaps not, because whenever you're targeted that much, you're not going to be open that much, and so it's a little bit of more short targets and receptions. But he creates yards after catch and breaks tackles at a better rate than any tight end in the NFL, and brings kind of that same physical nature in the passing game as he does when run blocking. And at run blocking, he is by far the best in the league. He has some versatility. He's earned a 91.9 slot receiving grade, trails only Kelce and Mark Andrews, who are targeted far more often than George Kittle is. It's just an amazing piece for the 49ers to have when they already have Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. That's why he's not getting all this volume, because there's so many other guys there. But he does his job. He does the dirty work, and he's really efficient tight end, really great tight end. And right now, George Kittle is a better tight end than Travis Kelce. You might not see it in the box score. Obviously, postseason, I'll just shout this one out. In the postseason, the stats for Travis Kelce, he's number 1 in yards. He had 32 receptions, 355 yards, 3 touchdowns. And all the way down at number 17 is where George Kittle is. 8 receptions for 112. Yeah, 8 receptions, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. So postseason does matter quite a bit. The bigger the game, the better you have to be. George Kittle, to be fair, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that 49ers offense. So it goes either way. Postseason does matter. I get that. But right now, George Kittle playing at a really high level, very underrated tight end. You talk about Kelce in a complete tier of his own when Kittle is actually really close to Travis Kelce on the receiving end of things, as well as just being a better blocker. And if you're a good blocker, that never gets talked about. Offensive linemen don't get a whole lot of love. And so, shout out to George Kittle. And also just an amazing, fun personality off the field and on the field as well. And I think a great leader for that team. All right, that'll about wrap things up. Next episode, I'm hoping to get some guests on the show again to hand out my season awards to Packers players and maybe talk a little bit about quarterbacks in the NFL and what makes an NFL quarterback elite. Okay, that will do it for me today. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to follow, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and send me any topics you have. Participate in those Q&As and polls on Spotify. Hey, send me a voice message while you're at it with any questions you might have. That's it. I'll be back next week with another episode of the show as we get into the NFL offseason and free agency, draft, all that stuff, and we'll start to dig into that eventually as well. Should be fun. But again, I'm done. Go Pack, go.